Hi, Empower You. Rebecca Foote here. I just wanted to give you a little bit of education today on what is the difference between CPI, Consumer Price Index, and PPI, Producer Price Index. This morning, I was watching the news as I was eating breakfast, and across the bottom of the screen, they did have the information correct, but what the anchor was saying was not correct. And I thought, why can't we have the right information out there for people to understand the correct information? So I wanted to make sure I came on, showed you some charts, and explained the difference between CPI and PPI. And because it does affect our interest rates when it comes to mortgages. And I wanted to make sure you understood it so you could explain it to your clients. So I'm just going to show you two screens here that show you CPI and PPI. So CPI is Consumer Price Index. Now we are in February of 2022. So depending when you're watching this video, the CPI and PPI are always a month delayed when they come out. So in February 2022, we get January 2022's numbers. And for this time period, our inflation just hit 7.5%. So as you can see by the chart, we have had inflation go up 7% in the past year. So it's been a year of inflation, and inflation is the arch enemy of mortgage bonds. So as inflation increases, so does interest rates on mortgages. So you can see by this chart, the blue line is showing you the actual inflation. So this is what you pay when you go on Amazon, when you go to the grocery store, when you go to the gas pump, when you're going to Walmart and Target. You're seeing the cost of your goods is 7.5% higher than what you paid last January for the same goods on average. Okay. Now, the red line is what you call the core rate. That strips out food and energy. So things like clothing, sporting equipment, anything that's not food and energy, that's what you're paying on the core goods. So that is up a little over 6% right now. But this is the price to the consumer, what the consumer is paying. That's why it's called Consumer Price Index, CPI, right? It's right in the title for you. Now, on the flip side of that, you have PPI, which is what's called Producer Price Index. So right now, we just got out the numbers yesterday. It was up 1% since last month. But you have to remember, when you're replacing year over year numbers, depending what number you were replacing from January of 2021, it may or may not increase your inflation number. So you can see we actually went from 9.8 to 9.7. And that's because the number we replaced from January 21 and replaced it with January 22 numbers didn't offset it that much. It actually brought it down in 1/10 of a point. So it's still really high though. And what this means, though, this is the cost that producers, the manufacturers, their cost of goods, what it's costing them to produce the goods that the consumers are buying. So right now, it's costing manufacturers 10%, basically 10% more to produce the goods that consumers are buying at 7.5% more. So the manufacturers are actually eating that 2.5% difference. They're eating it in their pockets right now. So you have to watch PPI because it does affect CPI in the long run, because manufacturers can only eat that cost for so long. After a while, they got to pass it on to the consumer. So we do want to keep an eye on PPI because it does affect CPI. But the news I heard this morning said, oh, well, if you didn't get a raise of 10% this year, then you're actually in the negative compared to where you were last year. And that was not true, because the 10% was Producer Price Index, not Consumer Price Index. The true statement would have been, if you didn't get a raise of 7.5% this year, you would have been in the negative. But you all have to remember, everything's relative. Once the Fed starts raising our Fed fund rates, like they should be doing, and they will do here in March, that's going to actually bring down inflation. Let's be honest, it's probably not going to go back to where it was before inflation happened, or there's always going to be some inflation, but it's going to reduce that. So it's not going to be 7.5%. So I just want to make sure people understand the difference between CPI and PPI, because PPI is not inflation on the consumer side, it's on the manufacturer side. So Any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to the Rebecca Foote Mortgage team. We are the experts on this stuff, so you don't have to be. But you need to know that this stuff does affect mortgage rates, and that in turn affects your clients. So we are here to help you any which way we can. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. And again, that's the difference between CPI and PPI.